I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're three best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing.
Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today, we are starting our discussion on Raven Kennedy's Gold, which is book 5 in her Plated Prisoner series. Today, we're talking about chapters 1 through 16. Of course, we are spoiler-friendly, not just for this book 5, but for the whole series, so listen with care. Before we get into it, Deb, will you please share our nerdiest cocktail?
Of course. Today, we're recording during the day today, so
it's kind of weird.
The good news is we probably won't be drunk by the end of the episode. Like we are sometimes. Today's drink is named the Aurous Spritz, and it's themed after the intertwining of gold and rot. Ooh la la. And this drink pairs well with falling out of the sky, ice queens, and trying to reunite with your mate. But be careful, because this drink may cause you to avenge the a-holes that tortured your soulmate. So it's got amaretto orange juice, sparkling wine. We put edible black glitter in ours for the rot. And yeah, you put that all in a glass and sip, sip, sip. Hooray.
It actually works perfect as like a day drink.
It does. Yeah, it's like a mimosa with amaretto.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's very light and easy.
Refreshing.
Yeah, it's probably really easy to get drunk off of, though. So
I was just about to say, it feels really elegant and refined.
Right, yeah. So that means
I asked for more amaretto.
That just means we can chug it since it's refined, right?
Chug.
That's usually what we do when we take breaks on the podcast. We just take shots over and over again.
And we play the shot song while we do it too.
Shots.
Thank you so much, Deb. Mindy, will you please share whose turn it is for the Nerdy and Dirty recap?
I sure will. It is your turn, Whitney.
Yay! Do you have a timer set up, or do I need to have a timer?
You go ahead and do it, because it'll distract me.
Okay.
We all know how good I am at this.
Well, we all know how good I am at telling you the amount of time you have left. So
we're just gonna.
We'll just go
see how it goes.
It's really cold here.
Conveniently
we're all
sit out.
It's gonna be rough.
Yeah.
Actually, It may not be.
Are you ready, my friend?
No, but that's fine.
On your mark, get set, go.
All right, number 1. Auren falls from the rip Slade has made into a different world. The rip closes. No Slade, boo. Number 2. An older lady knows exactly who Auren is and calls her by her name. Number 3. Slade is on a revenge tour. First stop, kidnap Manu, Queen Kayla's brother. Number 4. Slade says it's been 2 weeks since the conflux. Did Auren fall for 2 weeks? ? Number 5. Oh, hey, Queen Melina is still here and kind of important. She has ice powers like Elsa. The assassin is still hanging around her and wants Melina to prove she's not a terrible person. Number 6, Auren is being cared for and hidden by Estelia, Thursel, and Nanette. They tell her she's a Turley and has a claim to the throne. Number 7, the loyalist rebel leader Wick wants Auren to join their cause. She says, no thank you. Number 8, the Anwen King is in the 7th Kingdom and wants to overtake Aurea and get magic back. Melina and the assassin leave to warn Oriens. Number 9, Rissa is still in a coma, and Judd brings Manu to Osric.
Out of time.
I got messed up on Osric's
name. What number did you get to?
Number 9.
Okay, well, give us the final 2.
Okay, so number 9, Rissa's still in a coma and not healing. Judd brings Manu to Osric, while Slade exacts revenge on Second Kingdom's rulers, as well as destroying the town where Auren had been sold as a child. That was all number 9.
That was another 60 seconds.
Number 10, last but not least, Auren keeps waiting for Slade to show up, but realizes she needs to leave. When soldiers start searching door to door for her, she and Slade are both lost without each other.
They really are.
They are.
Okay, so I have to ask, because I just said in Our Nerdiest Cocktail, do you pronounce it Auren? And then you went, yeah.
What did I say?
Auren.
Oh, I guess they sound the same to me.
So
Auren. I don't know. Maybe I was just going too fast.
Aria.
I might be able to clear that up when I do our nerdiest vocabulary.
I said Aurea too. Aurean.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, is it Auren? Is it Auren?
I don't know.
But you know what?
Mindy might tell us.
We figured out in these books, we never know.
And we also don't care.
And I was going to say, it kind of doesn't matter. Right?
Even though I'm the word nerd and I like to know how to pronounce things.
Oh, well, I actually didn't do as horrible as I thought I might. It was better.
Your number 9.
I at least
Your
got
number 9 was
that was the mistake.
Yeah.
Is what that was. But I at least got through more than like the first 2 chapters as far as like the content.
Right.
So I'm going to take that as a victory. Yeah, I'm going to take this as a victory. Thank you, everybody. I know everyone listening is giving me golf claps right now, so I appreciate that. Before we get into the content itself, Mindy, will you please share our nerdiest vocabulary?
And please tell us how the fuck to pronounce this.
So first off is our female heroine, and it comes from a female name, and this name is Auren. And the reason I know this is because I knew somebody named Auren, and it's spelled O-R-E-N. So it's from the Hebrew Auren, and it means light or to shine, which...
Oh.
But it also can mean laurel. I had to look up what a laurel is. It's a plant with yellow flowers that the Greeks used as an emblem of triumph and distinction, and that Romans used as a symbol of peace. So I thought that kind of went along as well. And the only other definition I could find for it was heard.
Oh.
To be heard, which...
Like, you heard? Like,
but I guess... yeah, you heard. I guess because... Well, I think about the word aural, like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, to hear or whatever. So again, that tracks with the Auren. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I can't.
When you just said herd, though, I thought like
A cow herd.
Yes. That's why I was like, what? But that makes a lot more sense if it's like, listen.
So the next one would be our male main character. And I'm going with Slade, not King Rot.
that's pretty self-explanatory.
So that is actually an Old English surname, and it means from the valley, which kind of made me question. But like I started thinking, is Drollard Village in a valley?
I think it is like hidden.
That's what
in
I was
the mountain
wondering.
range.
But
yeah.
then I also thought it could represent his darkness. Like, you know, when you think about like peaks and valleys in your life, so like a dark period in your life is sometimes referred to as a valley.
Yeah.
So I thought that could go as well.
Yeah, he's pretty dark.
Yeah.
Then I wanted to do, okay, so let me ask you all this. How do you pronounce Auren's
Ancestor?
Yes.
Sarah.
Okay, that's how I say it.
I say Sarah
Okay.
too.
I didn't know if somebody said Syra.
But I kept going Saria, and I was like, I think it's just Sarah.
I guarantee somebody says Syra.
yeah.
But we
or
don't.
or Syra.
No,
Sarah.
That's
I went
wrong.
with Sarah as
Sarah,
well.
yeah.
And Sarah means princess in Hebrew and is associated with great beauty and boundless faithfulness. Again, totally tracks. And then finally, I wanted to just see if there was anything on some of our little side characters that we don't really know too well yet, but maybe their name meanings are foreshadowing that we might discover later. So Estelia is from the Spanish meaning star. So, you know, I don't see anything yet with that, but again.
What if she's the one that fell from the sky? What if she's Sarah?
Ooh.
Oh, I thought Sarah was dead.
Well,
I don't think they know.
Yeah.
Oh. I've just made
Or
an
at least
assumption.
we don't know.
She just
It's
disappeared
not
like Auren did, didn't she?
Okay, I think the only things that we know about she lived in Oria originally, and her dad got taken over to Anwen, and she walked the bridge into Anwen to
Right.
find her dad, but she never found her dad, and she landed in the same place Auren did. I had to really be careful about that. And then met the prince in that village, and they got married, and she became the queen.
Yeah.
Or the princess.
But we don't know what
We don't know
happened
what
after
happened.
that.
But after that, yeah, we
like
don't know
all we
what
know
happened.
is that those other people took over, but we don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's why I assumed that she died. If the other family, because when Thursil, whatever, however we're going to say it, when they were telling Auren about like the Turley history, one of them says somewhere down the line a Turley didn't want to rule. So I just assumed that meant like everybody
Everybody died.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
may
that's a
not
good
be right
assumption.
though.
Well, I mean, who knows? But like I
It's
said,
a fantasy book.
it means-
Everybody can go back to life.
It means star. So we'll
and
see
there's
if
still
some-
another book in the series too, so who knows?
Oh gosh,
I didn't
yeah.
realize that. Okay.
Well, this was supposed to be the last one, and then she renegotiated with the publisher because she's like, I can't finish
that's
it.
right. I
Wrap
remember
this all
that.
up, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So then I didn't find anything on Thursil, by the way. It just doesn't sound like a name that anybody would have. But Nanette is Egyptian for goddess of the deep. So if that's any kind of foreshadowing, I'm super excited to see what that entails. And then the only other one I did was Wick, which is from the Old English meaning village or working farm. Which,
Well, that's interesting because they're all farming the plants right there.
Yeah.
So
It's also just kind of a cool name.
it is.
I mean, that one guy, John Wick, killed someone with a pencil. So, I mean, that was pretty cool.
He killed
was
3
pretty
guys
cool.
with a pencil.
Yeah, don't fuck with his dog, man.
We just watched all those movies, and Robbie and I were like, what is this? Like, what is happening?
I have only seen the first one because I'm assuming if you've seen 1, you've seen 1 and 2 or 2 and 3
I mean,
as well.
pretty much, yeah.
Right, it's like the
pretty
Taken
much.
movies.
Well, let's get into the content of this section. So let's start with our favorite moment from chapters 1 through 16. Who wants to go first?
Oh, I'll go because I had a moment and like literally, do you ever read a book and like your heart grows like 4 sizes?
Tell us, Grinch.
It's when Auren realizes her ribbons have grown back. And
I
in
know
the
that.
book and even in the Kindle, there it says ribbon and it has like a picture of the
I
ribbon.
know.
It's really beautifully done. And she says, I count them like a mother counts a babe's fingers and toes. I curl all 24 strips into my fist like I'm holding the hands of a friend. I pull lightly, feeling the answering tug coming from my back all up and down either side of my spine. They feel satiny and sun-kissed. And I remember, I can't remember if it's book 1 or 2 whenever Midas cuts them off, but out of all the shit he did to her, did that not feel like the worst thing he could
yeah,
do?
it was horrible.
I mean, he
100%.
essentially what's the word when you
Disfigures
her,
Yeah.
right? It'd be like cutting off someone's arm, right? But it was kind of a big part of her power and her security. And, you know, that one time he wanted her to be naked, she wrapped it around herself like a dress. And so for those to be back, I feel like even though at this point in the book they don't have any powers yet, or we don't know if they're going to, it's a security blanket for her. And I
Yeah.
thought it was just beautifully written
Yes.
to bring
Yeah.
back in.
I really
Absolutely.
liked that a lot, too.
Yeah. Raven Kennedy writes a lot like Sarah J. Maas in the terms of like, she never says like, they were gold and flittery. Like she writes these beautiful, eloquent paragraphs that tell us everything we need to know.
That goes into my favorite moment, actually. And it's just, I love the way Raven Kennedy described how Auren woke up after falling. She uses the senses and she used them one by one. Like, you know, she said, okay, well, my first one was smell, and then she could smell things. And like she would take a paragraph to describe one smell. I loved that. It's just so illustrative, and it created such a picturesque description of Anwen, like a vivid memory, but real. It was just so beautifully written.
She's really good with show, don't tell.
Yes.
Yeah, and all the descriptions. Well, you guys have really like mature, thoughtful.
That's
favorite
unusual.
moments.
There's not even any dick in this. What'd you like?
Oh, I know. Well, I just really liked Judd. I thought he was really funny. He brought a lot of comedic relief moments to what is really like a heavy section, right? And a heavy book overall, just with what's going on. He made me laugh a lot. I really enjoyed Slade thinking to himself that Judd was in a good, he says, Judd is in a good mood. Might be all the maiming. And that made me laugh. And then Judd says to Osric when he brings Manu, is that how you guys say?
That's how I say it, Manu.
Okay. When he brings Manu to Osric, he says, the doctor, I can't remember, Hojat. Is that how you say Hojat? Is that how you say his name?
You just go with what you
I say Hoja. I'm just kidding. I say Hoja.
Hoja. When
Hosier.
he's like, I need you to leave the room so I can take care of Rissa and like maybe go clean up. And Judd says, I do believe our dear Mender just told you that you stink like foul ass. Just stuff like that. It made me laugh. I appreciated the comedic relief in the midst of like a bunch of really dark stuff.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I like Judd a lot.
But also,
He's funny.
I really like the give and take between the way that the healer speaks compared to how Judd speaks. It's
Yeah.
like a really good, like, they complement each other in
Yes.
like the negative way, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. Because Hojat speaks so eloquently because he could have been like, dude, she needs modesty and you need a bath.
He reminds me, the Hojat character reminds me, I can't think of his name, but the lawyer in the first season of Outlander.
Oh, yeah. Ned.
Ned Gowan. Yes. Like that is who I picture when I read about the Hojat Mender
Oh, yeah,
scenes.
that's a really
That is
good idea.
exactly who I
I can
picture.
see that.
Which I have no idea how Hojat is actually described and what he's supposed to look like, but that's what I picture.
Can I ask you guys a question? I was wondering this while I was reading because, Mindy, I know you just read all 4 of the other books in December, but it's been a full year, like, because I read this last one as it came out. What happened to the gentleman who kind of took care of Auren and Midas's prison, I'm going to call it?
Like the guard.
Yeah, what happened to him?
He is in the castle in Slade's kingdom.
Oh, okay.
He's
So
there.
he's still alive.
as far as we know. I
Okay,
think.
good,
Yeah.
good. I really liked him, and I was like, oh, did he die? Because
I don't think
Hojat
so.
reminds me of him.
Yeah, he was in Slade's kingdom and stayed behind when Slade went to the conflicts to like save Auren. I think the last time we saw him was when Slade and everybody finds out that she's been kidnapped.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as I know, I think he's okay.
Okay, great.
I think.
Yeah, because he got tortured as well. I remember they nursed him back to
They
health.
dismembered him as well, didn't they? Didn't they like
I think
cut
they
off
just
some stuff?
beat him like really bad
and tortured him. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, like I think he probably is disfigured just from that, but
Right.
just from beating, like it's
Yeah,
not.
and I don't know
not that bad,
he's- I can't remember, but I don't know that he's fully healed from that.
I don't think he is.
Yeah.
Maybe
That was a
note-
downer.
Well,
No, let's talk about some other shitty stuff.
we're going to talk about our least favorite moments, so it works. What were your all's least favorite moments?
Well, mine was really a small moment, but it just really gut wrenched me. So it's when Auren comes down after being taken from the field, and I think it might be the first or second time she comes down, and Nanette, Estelia, and Thurstel tell her she absolutely can't go out. Like she's wanting to go out and find the Rip, and they're like, you can't go out. And she gets this moment of panic when she's reminded of being trapped with Midas, and she doesn't want to feel trapped again, and it's just agonizing.
Yeah, very triggering for her.
I mean,
Yes.
they are still somewhat trying to use her as a tool. I don't know if
Yeah.
I fully trust those three to be
I'm
completely
kind of
honest.
with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like they're not telling her everything right now.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, yeah, we should use your face as a symbol. Sorry you just fell from everything that you know, but if you could like stand up and tell people you're here so we can fight, that would be great. Like, do you
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
blame her?
kind of thrusting her into something really quickly that
Well,
She's
Well, they're
clearly
doing the
not
same
ready
thing
for it.
Midas did, except for they don't lock her up, which is
Right,
great. but-
right. They, as I think to Nanette, Auren says at some point something like, if you knew what I've been through while I've been gone, like you would not ask me to do this. And nobody is like, hey,
Tell us
Why
about
don't you let
what'd
us
you
know?
do? Yeah,
Yeah.
like what happened to you? Like no, they don't ask her
Yeah.
anything other than like, how did you get from Anwin to Aurea? And she's like, I don't know. And like that's like
They're
the
"Great,
only
could
question.
You,
Yeah.
could you lead a revolution for us?
Right. Like they
Right.
don't ask her anything outside of that, which is kind of insane to me, but
Yeah.
I guess
Whatever.
from their perspective, they're in a shit situation too.
Yeah.
And, in their minds, they know all these stories and they know that she's a descendant of this person that really kind of united everything. And I guess they think in their minds that somebody that she would just naturally want to do that.
it's
But it just feels off.
well, and it's like I don't know if they have been assuming, we believed you were alive this whole time, but I don't know if they think that she was like out training to be their revolutionary leader and like just don't know how to deal with the fact that she wasn't and that she
Right.
doesn't know.
Which
You know what I mean?
Which
And they
again begs the question, why aren't they asking?
Right. Like,
Yeah.
I do wish that they
I'm
talked to
do
her
they
more.
know that she was being held captive?
Oh,
like
there you
what?
go.
Like you know what I mean? What do they know? And what? It's super weird to me that out of all this empathy they say they have for her and how much they want her to feel comfortable, that they're not really doing anything to make her feel comfortable. She's sleeping in a fucking attic.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, they could at least give her a bed on the ground floor.
Well, and everything is boarded up. There's
Yeah.
a window that's boarded up in the attic, I think.
And I mean, if I'm thinking of the swords guys, whatever they're called, I picture them as peacekeepers, right? From Hunger
Right.
Games.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to go knock door to door, I'm going to go knock on the house that's boarded up.
Right.
Why are all your windows covered, dude?
I did wonder if everybody's house is like that. Like if everybody just keeps their stuff boarded up because they don't trust the soldiers, but I don't think it ever said.
Right.
Yeah, so I kind of felt the same way. Like,
Right. It's
do
like
you
it's
guys
the
look
equivalent
weird?
of tinfoil in your window.
Well, and
Yeah.
here's the
Come on.
thing: if everything's boarded up, why not put her downstairs? The first place I'm going to look when I go look for somebody is in the attic.
I know
The
they were like,
crawl
we'll
space.
we'll
Yeah.
hide you in the attic. They'll never find you. And I'm like, they can see from the outside of the house that you have an attic. Why wouldn't
Right.
they look in there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm
It's
like,
weird.
maybe they were hoping they would catch her and then she would be the face.
Maybe.
yeah.
maybe.
But, yeah.
But then they would have, with that line of thinking, they should have encouraged her to go to the field and not been like, no, don't do that. Unless it was
That's
like
true.
Willy Wonka, like, no,
But
wait.
they were giving her this sense of freedom by letting her go, and then they weren't hiding her when she was there. So it did create this
Yeah.
whispering amongst the community,
Yeah.
which is why
Yeah.
the sword guys start going door to door. So
That is true.
I don't
Yeah.
trust them, and they kind of achieved what they were trying to achieve with still giving her quote unquote freedom. I don't feel like she was necessarily free from them by any means.
Well, no, I don't think she thinks that either.
Yeah.
Well, my least favorite moment kind of goes along with that, like her wanting to go out to the field and thinking that Slade is going to open another rip like immediately and come for her, like, oh, I've got to go there, so when he lands I'm there. And that her realization of like, okay, this isn't going to go like that. Not that she
he's
thinks
only ever made 2 ever,
right? So like, not that she thinks he's not going to come, but just that her realization of like, okay, I can't just sit here and wait. He's not just going to show up tomorrow. Like, this is going to take a lot of time. And I feel like that was a rough realization for her of like, what do I do? Like, what am I supposed to do? You know?
Aren't we supposed to believe too it's been like a couple of 100 years whenever he ripped the first time?
I don't know. I thought about that, but I don't know because
those people are settled.
Yes, but I don't know if Riot is. That's one question I don't understand because Riot is born of
His brother,
2.
you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
Slade's brother Riot is from 2 humans, but they're humans that have long life from the like magic of Anwin. But does that mean he has the magic of Anwin too? Automatically? That's one thing I'm not clear about that timeline.
Mm-hmm. When I'm looking at 2 different worlds and there's a rip or whatever, I immediately now go, because I've read so many of these, to what if they're on a different timeline?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. God, you just made my stomach sink.
Well, and that's one of the questions that I wrote in my recap. You know, Slade says it's been 2 weeks since the conflux, but at that point in the book, the only thing we have seen Auren do is fall.
Yeah.
So I'm like, did that take 2 weeks?
She was falling forever.
Right.
Remember,
So
she loses track of time.
So how does time work?
Yeah.
Yeah, with an Anwin versus Aurea.
Fuck.
Makes me want to just say
I'm just gonna
Oreo.
I was gonna say I'm just gonna call it Oreo.
Oreo.
Let's go to Oreo. Yum yum. So I'm gonna twist to the other part of this book. So the bullying of Queen Collier from the Fae King was definitely my least favorite part. He tries to intimidate her, tells her that her power is a gift from the Fae, and then he mocks her when she can't control or use the power, when he's putting extreme stress on her body and mind.
Yeah.
And it just felt like old white guy patriarchy of like,
Yeah.
oh, you want power? Well, I gave you power. Use it, use it, use it, use it, use
Yep.
it. And one of my big questions about this book is, has she always had that power and like it wasn't unlocked? I find it hard to believe like the Fae would give her a gift.
I don't think that they gave it to her on purpose.
Yeah.
I think it was like a side effect of using their magic to do whatever the spell with her blood to open up the
I see. Yeah.
the bridge.
Because it's
But-
the twin thing. Like if they,
Yeah, that's what
they were
they
saying.
said.
I know,
But, you know, take that with a grain of salt if that's actually
just so you know, I
accurate.
tried to do a deep dive on that. I couldn't find anything.
Well, and I have a lot of questions about the twins too, because they
Me too.
seem like they are playing both sides to see who wins out. Like they have a different end game than
I was
the
going to say
king
they
does.
have their own agenda for
They
sure.
do.
Well, we're kind of jumping ahead to our questions, but one of my questions with those 3, the guy who pretended to be the fortune teller to get her there, and then the twins in Seventh Kingdom, how did they get there? Because if they needed her to open up the bridge or whatever,
So
how
they've
did
been
they
there
get
for
there?
500 years, or
Right,
something,
like
waiting for
this
her
is a
blood?
whole big long game. Like, how long have they been doing this? How did they get there in the first place? Like, why before the bridge got broken or whatever? Why would they have gone over in preparation for? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
One thing in Sarah's story is that she says a lot of people go, but none of them come back. So I wonder if they, because she's trying to follow her father. So I wonder if like someone they loved went and they were following them, or it seems like
And
a lot
just like
of,
the opposite direction, because
Right.
she went into Anwin and they had obviously had to come out of Anwin. Yeah, maybe.
But
I
I'm
don't
still
know.
with you. I'm like, oh, that's a long game. Like,
Right?
he could have gotten to her long before that, because nobody was really paying attention to her when she was in the castle.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's
maybe
something
they
going
didn't
on.
know who she was.
maybe. Yeah, that was all confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was all confusing.
Raven
Well, she's
Kennedy's
still a
really good
mystery.
about wrapping things up. So
Yeah,
I'm
she
really
is.
Yeah. Oh,
excited
yeah.
to see
But
where this goes.
but Queen Melina's definitely still an enigma and still a mystery. There's still a lot going on there that we don't know about.
Yes, that's true. What about biggest revelations?
I'll go first, and this is where I got the Auren. I was asking about Auren's name. It's kind of silly, but when I was researching into what we call our drink, and I really thought this would come up in your vocab, Mindy, I realized that the name Auren is actually derivative of the scientific name for gold, which is RM.
Oh,
And for our listeners, just so you know, I was researching names for gold to keep the name Golden out of our drink since it sounds like pee.
Yeah, that makes sense because
noise.
Yeah. Well, the periodic table is AU, which makes so much sense.
And
now.
I'm like, how have I read 5 of these books and I never
not realized that
her name was derivative of the scientific name gold?
And I never would have realized it if you hadn't said it. Didn't realize it, wouldn't have realized it. That is a cool. For even Kennedy, she's just so smart. What about you, Mindy? What was your biggest revelation?
Mine, I don't know if it's really a revelation, but more of an, oh yeah, now I remember, because even though I read these books 2 months ago, that's a long time for my brain. So I kind of had forgotten, like, when Auren's gold is tinged with the black lines of rot, I was like, ooh. And I was like, but I totally forgot that she does still have a piece of his rot in her from when she had to use his power to keep her from destroying herself.
And we're supposed to think that could eventually kill her, right?
Right.
It's not a
he
positive.
thinks that. Yes.
I think it's going to end up being something really cool for her power. Like, it helps her control.
I think
her
it's going to
power
end up being her savior, to be honest with you.
I agree. Yeah. My theory, I'll just go ahead and share this theory with you guys. And maybe this is like everybody reading, like, yeah, that's what everybody thinks. But I think, Slade is so bewildered that piece of rot won't come out. But I think they are clearly like mates.
They're mates. And I think that's why.
And I think that's why the piece of rot won't come out.
Yeah,
and if she could somehow like put her power in him the way he can rot, that the gold would stay in him.
I mean,
too,
he can put something in me.
Sadly, he only has eyes for Auren.
Slade taught me about edging, so
Oh, Lord.
Oh, good times. Well, I kind of had 2 biggest revelations. One was the whole Auren is a Turley. She has a claim to the throne. Like, that was kind of like, oh, which makes sense for somebody who is like gold, like a gold person. But my other one was kind of like you, Mindy, of like, well, not really a revelation, but I just remembered. I genuinely had completely forgotten about Queen Melina. The whole last book ends with her.
Right.
And I completely forgot about her.
Well, that was one of the things, we always talk about at the end, like, what are we really looking forward to? She is such a bitch to Auren, and Auren is a bitch to her too. And imagine being the queen who can't provide an heir, and your husband starts fucking all these people, and he tells you all the time, she's my favorite, you're not, you're horrible, right? Yep. And at some point, I feel like Queen Melina and Auren are going to have to be allies.
Yeah,
and they're going to have to unpack all of that, which I'm really looking forward to. They're going to have to work together past what this asshole guy did to them, right? He used them both.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And so I'm really pumped to see where that goes. So we've taken this very inconsequential person from the first 3 books and made her into this main character.
She definitely seems like a background character for the first couple. I mean, she's not even really in book 2 very much at all, I don't think. But yeah, I really have enjoyed over the past 5 books how she's a background character, and now it's like, oh no, she's like really important, because I kind of thought that maybe being used by the Fae was going to be her function, right? Like she got used again, and like that's kind of it. But she's got a much bigger role in this section.
She's tough, like Auren is.
She is,
yeah. And so I'm excited to see them work together.
I'm actually starting. I've hated her for books books, but I'm actually starting to see something in her that's actually intriguing.
Yeah, she's like a morally gray villain.
Yeah.
Right? Like the villain that you're like, oh, maybe this is the love interest. Like I kind of feel like that about her. Well, I ended up doing a deep dive about her power because my daughter is completely obsessed with Frozen. So of course I was like, oh, she's Elsa. Melina is basically Elsa, right? She's like frosting the doorknobs and all this stuff. So,
conceal, don't feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Queen Melina.
So those are clearly some heavy Elsa vibes. So I knew that Frozen is based, at least like loosely, off of some Nordic folklore. So I wanted to do a deep dive into what some folklore of ice queens with ice powers, what that is. So the first result, and this was the most common thing that I found when I was Googling, shout out to Google, is a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale called The Snow Queen. Usually his stories are pretty short, but The Snow Queen apparently is his longest story. It's 7 chapters, where I guess other fairy tales are just like one, like little novella. So this is a really quick and dirty rundown because this was a very convoluted story. So basically, the Snow Queen story revolves around a shattered magic mirror that only reflects the negative things. You cannot see anything good in it or through it. So there's a troll that actually turns out to be the devil that takes this magic mirror and breaks it into all these tiny little pieces. And the shards go like everywhere. Some of them go
Like in the world, you mean?
Yes. They go into like windows, into people's glasses, stuck in people's eyes and hearts, which makes these people kind of awful, uncaring people because you can only see negative, bad
I kind of love that as like an origin story for evil in the world.
Right?
That's kind of cool.
Right. So some of these shards of glass get stuck in the eyes of a little boy named Kai, and he becomes unfeeling toward everyone, including his best friend, Gerda. And these are kind of the main characters in this story, Kai and Gerda. So Kai is eventually lured away by the Snow Queen, who drives him around in a sleigh, makes him forget everyone he cares about, and traps him in the middle of a frozen pond where he can't escape unless he completes an impossible task. So there's a lot of Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe vibes, the Winter, the White Queen, with that witch and the sleigh. So basically, Gerda goes and finds Kai with the Snow Queen and saves him through the power of her love.
Oh,
so
that's really sweet.
There's a lot of religious stuff mixed in there. There's a lot of like Bible quoting and prayers, and it's obviously like good versus evil. The Snow Queen represents a lot of the evil in the story, but honestly, I don't understand like what the Snow Queen has to do with like the broken shards of glass. It kind of seemed like the Snow Queen wasn't really connected to like the troll breaking the magic mirror. It was like just a bad person taking advantage of the situation. That I was not clear about, which is, you know, because I didn't read the actual story. I read the
Sparks
Wikipedia.
notes.
I read the Wikipedia entry. So, you know.
If you know, please just message us and let us know.
If you know, you know.
Actually, I think we have that book in our library, so maybe I need to
read it for me and let me know.
Yeah, Whitney's like, I'm not reading it.
I read the summary.
Only 7 chapters.
Yeah,
Whitney.
that's
That's
good
like
enough.
20 minutes for you.
Well, maybe. So then I found this really awesome article from Medium that gives information about several different Snow Queen type characters from all kinds of different cultural mythologies, including Celtic, German, Norse mythology, Baba Yaga from Slavic folklore, which is just really fun to say, honestly, and a few others also. Several of these versions of the Snow Queen depict her as an old crone, which does not fit Queen Melina because they talk about multiple times like how beautiful she is.
Although I do picture her as the mom queen from Shrek. Oh. That's just how I picture her.
Well, she does have like white hair, but
I'm gonna have to work on my fan cast.
I would say that's me. That's like a Whitney style, a Whitney style fan cast there. So Perchta is from German folklore. She can take the form of a crone or a beautiful swan, but is said to be equally beautiful and terrifying, which I feel like that's Melina,
Yeah.
right? Perchta is known to dole out punishment to the people that she says are lazy, selfish, or dishonest, and is also the leader of the wild hunt, which we've talked about. I think in season 1 when we talked about Akatar, we talked about
It's a big
Fae.
thing in a lot of Fae books too. Is the wild hunt to get your mate across the veil.
Yeah, so Perchta is supposed to be like the leader of that, which
Interesting.
I thought, at least in German mythology, which I thought was interesting. In Norse mythology, there is Skaoi, Skaoi, a giantess and mighty warrior, which I kind of love. Her presence is believed to bring snowfall, icy winds, and frozen landscape, which sounds like Elsa and Melina, because she's bringing like the frost and making things cold. She can build a castle out of ice.
Or a snowman.
It's like, wait, what am I talking about? Am I talking about Frozen or am I talking about
Is this
sun?
Perchta or Elsa?
This is Skaoi.
Sorry, I was writing down your edit.
So that's Skaoi. And then the last one I wanted to focus on is Morana. Morana is a Slavic goddess connected to winter, death, and rebirth. She is a beautiful but stern woman with long black hair, dressed in either white or black, and is both feared and respected, just like Melina.
Are they describing me?
Yes.
She wears all black. She has black hair. She's feared
And respected.
I don't know if I'm respected. I'm definitely feared, I feel like.
Morana brings frost and cold winds, which symbolizes the harshness and severity of winter, but also the promise of rebirth once winter is over. So I don't know which, if any of those folklore Raven Kennedy was working from as she created Melina. But I love that Melina is connected with all these different ideas of harshness, power, resiliency, hope of rebirth, beautiful and terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I just really love that. So we're seeing this hope of rebirth kind of starting to play out in this first section, at least, with the assassin, as he's basically telling Melina that she needs to prove to him that she's not a huge bitch. Right? Like, I won't help you unless I believe that you truly like want to do the right thing. Right.
Well, and he even says to her, you know, all those people turned on you, right? And she's like, I don't care. Like, and she does have this change of heart.
She really does. Yeah. And he is trying to like bait her into like, are you sure? Think about it.
But
really
we don't
think
know
about
what
it.
his origin is either. Is he
That's
Fae?
true.
Is he a human who sent him to kill her? Do we know?
I think we assume he has to be at least part Fae because he's got
that shadow magic.
the shadow magic.
Yeah.
Although I guess
Is he going to be our shadow daddy?
I think he is.
I think he is too.
I think
That's
he's
one of
gonna-
my questions. I need to know more.
I think
about
he's
him.
going to be Melina's shadow daddy. But yeah, she's got to prove that she's not this terrible person. And I'm really feeling like she's not a terrible person, right?
I think she was a creature of her circumstance.
I totally agree.
Yes.
Yeah, I
she
totally
was
agree
made,
with that.
not born like that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see her story play out, kind of like you were talking about, Mindy. I'm excited to see her become more of a major player, and I'm excited to see her join forces with, I think eventually it will be Auren, but maybe first it's going to be Slade somehow, or maybe Queen Kayla. Like, I don't know how that's going to play out, but I think eventually it will definitely be with Auren.
Right.
Auren.
However you say it, listeners.
The golden, the lost golden girl or whatever. But anyway.
Yeah,
so,
pronounce the Latin for that.
Yeah.
La 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 la.
but yeah, I really enjoyed reading about like all those. There's a ton of different folklore. I didn't expect to find that many, but
Mindy, if you can read those really tough 7 chapters and get back to Whitney, that would be great.
I'll work on that.
I was really confused about that because I was like, where did the Snow Queen come from? Like, she just
seemed like it just sort of died off. Like what?
Yes, like the devil breaks the mirror, and then he's, the little
She's
boy.
like literally the
You're like, wait, I want to read more about the devil, please.
I'm so confused about that whole thing, but yeah. Gerda saves the day with her love and prayers.
Good job, Gerda.
Good job, Gerda.
Your name doesn't have it going for you, but you're...
Oh, man. I thought it was Greta when I first read it, and then I realized it was Gerda, and I was like, oh.
on Friends whenever Ross is at the wedding, and he's like, what's your name? And she's like, Gert. He's like, hop on,
It's a
Gert.
really, really pretty name. Everybody shared their biggest revelation, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this book kind of doesn't really have any spicy scenes, but I actually did write something down. Did you
Wait,
guys
hold
write
on,
anything
hold
down?
on. The book or this portion? Because I've not read past this portion.
I get this portion.
Okay, I was about to cry. I
Chapters
changed,
1 through 16.
Okay, I changed it to what my favorite scene was.
Oh, okay. What was your favorite scene?
So it's when Slade points out that the forced religious devotion creates resentment in the kingdom with the conflicts. And it reminds me of when we did our 3-episode arc earlier in the season on Midnight Mass, which we had so much fun with. So he says, the thing about forced devout or punishments doled out by the pious is that followers eventually realize that their enduring isn't for the gods at all. Their highly dedicated matrons are festering with resentment, bitterness, and hate. He then has the matrons scrub her soul, and all the matrons stand there while he doles out his punishment to her and her king, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, the
I like
queen
that.
of Second Kingdom, I think.
Yeah, it's wherever they had the conflicts. I can't remember which
I think
kingdom
it's
it
Second
is.
Kingdom.
Yeah,
But
Somebody doling out punishment is definitely hot.
yeah, it is. Good job. Slade
That is
slash
literally
King
what I
Rock.
wrote down as my favorite spicy scene. Because
Was
it's
him
like,
doling out punishment?
yeah. Because what did I write
Mine's
down
similar,
specifically? I said Slade with an exclamation point. Hot, angry, protective. That's what I wrote down. So,
Well, I wrote down none for spicy scene, but then I realized, because this goes into my chapter MVP, that I was super turned on. I was super turned on by his badassery. So I love how he first
So
tried.
Slade was your MVP?
He is
That was
mine.
mine.
Yes.
hot, me too. Hot,
Because
angry, protective.
He first tries to open another rip and to get Auren and his mom, but then when he fails, he just goes on this rampage, right? And it just gives me chills when I visualize him walking through these kingdoms. Like I'm that he's like hulking out, but like rotting as he does it. Like,
I would love to see
100%.
this on screen.
And
Yeah, I think it would be really
and
cool.
it's all in complete vengeance.
Yeah.
I don't know. The revenge
It's funny you
destruction
say-
must turn me on.
It's so funny that you say revenge, because I wrote my chapter MVP is Slade/Commander Rip and his vengeance, obviously.
Yeah.
But I will say what does it for me at the end of this 1 through 16 is that he still has sympathy for the innocent, and he says, actually, I don't feel sympathetic for you, but Auren does, and I want to do what she wants to do, and that's hot.
Yes.
Right, because
Yes.
she has helped reel him in some.
Well, and I love too that he's, especially with the Second Kingdom, he's not just getting revenge, although he absolutely is. He's also taking the time to kind of reveal to the kingdom, the people living in the kingdom, what kind of rulers they actually have. When he's like, if I tell you to torture your husband to death, will you do it? She's like, yep. And doesn't even like hesitate and uses her power on him. And like,
because she tries to say like, no, she forced us to do it. She made us do it. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, if you want to save yourself, hurt your husband. And then he's like, you didn't hesitate. So no one made you do anything.
Yeah. She didn't question it. She didn't try for like, well, how about this instead? Like nothing. She would have done it until he died if Slade hadn't have stopped her. Right? And I really love that.
It's a really powerful scene.
Well, because that takes extra time. And he is kind of impatient for revenge. And I just love that he's taking everybody down with him, right? Like, I'm not just going to kill you. I'm going to tarnish your reputation, and I'm going to destroy your legacy, and I'm going to turn everybody against you, and then I'm going to kill you.
To be honest,
you know?
it's much more like the Slade we see in books 2 and 3.
Yes.
Which I really enjoy.
My favorite Slade. I like it and I love it. So he was my MVP too for all of the same reasons. What about a secondary character?
What was yours? What?
Mine was Judd because he's funny.
Yeah, because you like Judd.
Yeah, he made me laugh and everything else made me sad.
Mine was, I already talked about Queen Melina and said all of the reasons I really liked her, but I also did like Nanette. And it's for this one phrase. She says, youth is wasted on the youthful. In my day, I would have marched right up to the king's castle and tossed him on his arse if I had a gilded face. I just like, she's like the old patriarch that like doesn't take shit from anybody. And she does risk a lot for Auren each day. So, but, yeah, there's a lot of great secondary characters in this portion.
There really
of the book.
are. Yeah.
Mine were Thursel and Estelia. So different, a little bit different, but for kind of the same reasons that you like Judd. I just felt like they brought a lightness to these chapters. They're serious about everything that's going on, but they don't lose sight of themselves, and they still enjoy each other's company. Their flirty banter is just so damn cute.
Yeah, they are really
They
cute.
just bring a levity to these chapters that I feel like was needed.
Yes.
In some places.
Can I say too, Auren, how the fuck are you going to be burning some toast over an open fire?
Yeah.
When she goes to help them
I
cook,
mean,
I'm like, you
she's-
can see it toasting, honey.
She couldn't even like separate the tea.
Yeah.
Like she could not do
I wonder
anything.
though, is Raven Kennedy showing us like her anxiety? Is that what it is?
I
like
think
she's
so.
dropping stuff. She can't pay attention to the toast. Like, you know.
Well, because it's also in book 4 or 3 when after she wakes back up, I guess it's book 4, after Midas has like cut off her ribbons and she like destroys him and then she passes out. After she wakes up from all that, she is avoiding talking to Slade and like talking about her feelings and her trauma. She doesn't want to go there.
Right.
And she makes them all dinner. And
That's
and
right.
it's
She
so
fucks that
awful.
up. Yeah.
Like it's really
Oh,
gross
yeah.
and they're all like, I'm not fucking eating this. Like,
I'd forgotten
it's
about
so
that.
bad. Yeah, but yeah, like this is the second time that Raven Kennedy has shown her cooking to like avoid sitting with her feelings or talking
Right.
about her feelings or showing that like outward anxiety.
I wonder
So-
if Raven Kennedy's a bad book or a bad,
bad
not
cook.
a bad cook, not a bad book, a bad cook. And she's like, ha, ha, ha.
either her or someone close to her. Like this is a real
I
thing.
believe it though, because you got to think about, I mean, even though, you know, leading up to her time with King Midas was more of a survival thing, you know, she's been like basically sequestered and put on a pedestal this whole time. She hasn't had to do anything for herself like that. Like she's a strong character, don't get me wrong, but like she's never had to make herself food. She's
That's
never
true.
had to do any of that stuff. So
Yeah, not since she was a kid
Yeah.
in the West End or whatever
Yeah.
that has now been rotted, and
Yes.
I liked that part too.
I know.
I was really glad that they actually brought that back up because I had forgotten that in between the books
Yeah.
that she was prostituted out. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I was really happy when he went and fucked him up first.
Yeah.
I was excited about that.
Yeah, because I think Slade said, it didn't stop with Auren. I keep doing it. Dang
You
it.
call it what you want to call it.
It didn't stop with her, right? Like they started painting themselves to kind of hide the fact that she ever existed, and somebody's always going to step up to take. I think Jed says this to Slade, like, okay, you killed everybody that's still doing this, but somebody else is going to come in and take the open spot and start the slave trade again, right? And he's like, yes, and we'll come back and we'll do this again. And Jed's like, ooh, all right,
Let's fuck some shit up.
yeah. I feel like he needs a shirt that says that.
Fuck some shit up.
Yeah, Jed would wear that
He would
for sure.
definitely wear that.
What about your favorite quote?
Mindy, how many do you have?
I only have 2.
Oh, there's a lot of really good quotes in this.
Hey, look,
really
you
are.
all have already said like 2 or 3 each.
That's true.
Blah, blah, blah.
That is true.
I didn't say those were my favorite quotes. I was just quoting.
Mindy, what are your favorite quotes?
So the first one I have is sort of a empowering quote, and it's when Sarah says, "So yes, I was scared to fall, but without falling, I never would have landed, and what a beautiful thing it was to land."
I love that too.
Just so empowering, so uplifting, and again, in a time with this book is so heavy. For that to kind of come out and then be that reminder. I loved that. And then, of course, going along with how much I love how Slade is just like touch her and die and don't fuck with me. I loved when he said he's talking to Queen or about Queen Kayla, and he says it's time I remind her and everyone else exactly why you don't fuck with me and mine.
Yeah, I liked that a lot too. I actually picked one from Queen Melina, since we've been talking about her a lot. She's talking about giving her blood being tricked into giving her blood for this curse, or spell rather. And she says, once I serve my purpose to the men who need me, I am pushed aside because I have only had one worth to them. And she's talking about her blood, like they only cared about, Midas only cared about her royal blood, and these Fae only cared about her pure Aurian blood. But I mean, I was like, gosh, that describes Melina, that describes Auren, that describes all the saddles, it describes Rissa, like
It describes patriarchy.
Yes,
describes every woman in this book.
yes, like they have one purpose, and that purpose might vary what it is from person to person, but they all are being sought after to be used by
no
men.
women in this series are treated like people.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
So I really loved that quote from Melina because it applies to all of them.
It really does. Well, for me, my favorite quote was also the one from Sarah, Mindy. In this portion of the book, the author shares that quote, and Sarah Turley is crossing the bridge to nowhere. So at this point in the book, we're led to believe that this story ends with Sarah falling into Anwin. I want to point out it never says where she falls, just for the record. And again, I want to say this quote again. Yes, I was scared to fall, but without falling, I never would have landed. And what a beautiful thing it is to land. And it really got me wondering how other authors have tackled the idea of how humans travel to Fae lands. And I'll be honest, I tried to just look this up in folklore and it got way too convoluted. So I was like, let's just talk about all the books we love instead. So let's start with Sarah J. Maas, who wrote A Court of Thorns and Roses, Throne of Glass, and Crescent City. And she has her humans and Fae sharing the same world, living side by side in all 3 of those series.
Yeah.
And What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods, humans must be taken by the Fae through the veil between both worlds. In this series, much to what you talked about earlier, Whitney, the Fae go on hunts to try to find their human mate and kidnap them into the Fae lands. And in this series in particular, the humans are not happy about it. They're terrified, right? They're not like, oh my God, yeah, kidnap me.
Yeah, it's like the worst thing that could happen to them. Yeah.
In the Rhapsodic Books, which is the Bargainer series by Laura Thalassa, travel to the Fae realm from human lands is only available via portals, which seems to take them to an alternate dimension. Like it almost feels like they go into like outer space almost sometimes. And it's because he flies up into the stars. And just like Rhysand and Feyre, they also do it in the sky. Great. In Heather Fawcett's Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, the Fae must take you into their lands themselves, and again, it has the feel of alternate dimensions, but on the same timeline. Lexi Ryan, who wrote These Hollow Vows and that series, which I think is an outrageously underrated series, by the way. In this duology, humans are kidnapped by the Fae and almost given as offerings to the powerful Fae of that realm. Like they're going to possibly be like the king's wife, but they're used much more like slaves in that realm.
Yeah.
Another example of the interdimensional travel is the Folk of the Air series, which starts with the cool prince, and the three sisters in this book are kidnapped and taken to the Fae realm, which exists on the same timeline as their, like, quote-unquote earthly life, but one must know the steps to travel there. And unfortunately, we find out in the books that when humans are freed to go back to their normal lives after living in their city of Elfheim, they tend to go insane.
Yeah.
Which is really, really sad. So, if you know us outside of the podcast, you know we can't forget Outlander. And that's because Jamie Fraser is so hot. Oh my God.
So hot.
So in this book, a woman travels to 18th century Scotland from 1960 simply by touching stones in a Stonehenge type of place. The humans in this book claim that it's a fairy hill that allows time travel on certain days of the year. And I think you're supposed to think they're like solstice days.
Yeah.
It's never confirmed in the books that the traveling locations have anything to do with fairies, but we don't really care because we're like really wrapped up in the love story that Diana Gabaldon writes. It's a very, very good story, but it starts, the humans claim that they're fairy hills.
Yeah.
We'll suspend our disbelief for that.
Right,
It's
that's
fine.
right. And the series isn't over, so we still don't know, really.
Yeah, that's true.
I recently found a series of books that start with The Dark King by Gina Maxwell, which have the Fae living side by side in the human world, unbeknownst to us Homo sapiens. But the Fae live in dens of inequity, like running and owning most of Las Vegas. Like the Fae King owns Las Vegas. So I've got just a couple more. I've not read all of the Zodiac Academy, but I believe that the Fae and the otherworldly creatures all attend like a academy together, like a college academy, and live side by side with the humans, kind of like Percy Jackson. I think it's the same type of thing. And I'd be remiss to point out all the books on my TBR that come highly recommended by Book Talk. So these are the other Fae ones that I plan on reading. So we have Dark Fae by Caroline Peckham. She also wrote Zodiac Academy. How Does It Feel by Jean O'Reilly. Dance with the Fae Prince by Elise Kova, who's going to be at Imaginarium when we go. I'm really excited. The Beast of the Briar series by Elizabeth Helen, which Whitney absolutely loves and is on their art team. The Curse of Shadows and Thorns by L.J. Andrews. Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare, who wrote the Shadowhunter series. Psycho Fae by Jasmine Mass. Of Mist and Shadow by Jenna Wolfhart. And, of course, there's another series written by Raven Kennedy, which is the Heart Hassle series that starts with Cupidity, which is a Why Choose rom-com.
Ooh,
so I actually have the whole series in my library.
It's blanking. How in A Curse So Dark and Lovely? I always get that mixed up.
No, there's a lot of and it's, and it's a lot of.
How do they travel? Because
I was wondering, I actually almost put that on my list, and that's A Curse So Dark and Lonely is by Bridget Kemmerer, for those of you that haven't read that. It's an amazing series. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I don't know if they're Fae or if it's just magic. I couldn't remember.
That's true.
Right, so maybe I'll just message her. She's really great about responding and is so sweet if you've never had the chance to meet her, but I almost put that on the list because I couldn't remember. I know that there's interdimensional travel.
Right.
And it's not, it's like the same amount of time, but it's not on the same timeline, if that makes sense. Because she definitely goes into a high fantasy type of world. But then I don't feel like it's Fae that are interrupting the world. It's like devil, demon type of species almost. Yeah, it's
definitely magical for sure.
If you want a really great YA series that's not sex heavy, has a lot of really cool mythology in it, I recommend that series, A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and then Defy the Night. They both are really great, especially if you have young teens that want to get into fantasy. It's a great stepping stone, but also just impeccably written.
Just very, very good.
Yeah, read those for sure. So yeah, that's all. I mean, when I Googled Fae Books and Worlds, it was 100 books came out.
I bet.
I mean, it's so popular right now, but I will say all of the books I mentioned have something different about them that does not make them feel redundant. And I think that's why the the whole Fae writing is so huge right now is because you can really take these rules and
you can do
make
whatever
them into
you
your
want.
own. Yeah, because the Fae can do whatever they want,
Yeah.
right? They can
Pretty much.
shape-shift. They can go to different lands. They can fly. Like, there's a lot.
Like, you have to suspend your disbelief no matter what when you're reading fantasy, right? Like,
Sure.
that's what you do because it is a fantasy book. So
Right.
why not go balls to the wall with it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, even this one, the story of like the gold touch is because she's Fae. And I remember I read this book because someone recommended it to me. And to be honest, if you're starting on this series, right, and you start with book 1, you're like 3/4 of the way through, and then it's like, and then he was Fae, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
like I
me
just thought
too.
this was a gold touch like type of thing, like a retelling, and then I was
Yeah.
like, okay, now I'm invested.
Yeah. I really like that twist a lot because
Well,
I didn't see it coming either.
I mean, I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere because that makes it sound negative. It was a really perfect twist at that point in the book. Made me
Yeah.
want to keep reading. So, yeah. So get out there, friends. There's a lot of Fae books out
a
there
ton.
right now.
Yeah. I love that you included the TBR. I would have had like 100.
Well, I had to stop.
Well,
You know, at some point, I had to stop talking or writing. So.
Yeah. Well, I know we've shared kind of throughout the episode questions. Are there any other questions at this point that we haven't talked about yet?
Something's come up more than once that's really got me thinking. And is the question of, is Slade actually a god?
Yeah, I wrote that down too. Yeah,
because
that's one of mine.
his shape-shifting capabilities, his powers are different from everyone else's in
Yes.
the Fae world so far. So, you know, does he have like pure blood? Which honestly, if he does, I don't really love that whole thing because a lot of books about this kind of go into like Harry Potter mudblood, right? I don't
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. But there are a lot of people when he's like on his rampage, they're like, oh my God, are you all powerful? Like, what's going on here? So I'm excited to see how that plays out. That's my main question.
Yeah, I wrote that down too because it was the Second Kingdom queen, I think, that says, you know, like, oh, you have two forms like the gods of old. And what I wrote down was, okay, are we literally talking gods or is she thinking of like a powerful fae before
they
the
called
bridge
gods.
that they called gods,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
either way, he's definitely like above other fae,
He's going
right?
on this rampage, and I'm like, why hasn't he done this before? Like, he could have just wiped shit out, and we wouldn't even have a story. But like,
Right. Yeah.
because he's so powerful.
I mean, I wouldn't piss him off.
No.
Yeah, don't mess with him.
What about you all? Did you have other stories?
I have so
other stories,
many
other questions.
I have lots of stories.
I have many questions. We've talked a little bit probably about some. Like, I really want to know more about this assassin. I need to know what's up with Wick. He seems just, I don't know,
Questionable.
Yes, very.
Yeah.
I really want to know why her ribbons don't move, like why she has them back, but they're not moving.
functional?
For her.
Yeah.
And then I just need to know more about Sarah Turley and like what was the deal with the bridge then? Did she fall through a rip? What was the situation that made her so beloved? Like, we get bits and pieces, but there's still a bunch of holes. But the one that really like bothered me is so inconsequential. When I was reading all that descriptive of when she woke up, and there's the part where she gets the hearing sense into it, and there's a boy that calls her name in her memory when she wakes up in the field.
That's one of my questions.
Do we
too.
know who that is?
No.
Yeah, that was like,
You know, I just realized I like don't think that even resonated with me as important as I was reading. But now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, why was that in there?
it just like she doesn't do. These
That's
authors
not
don't
an
do that.
accident.
It's not
Yeah.
a
She's
throwaway.
having a memory of something.
Yeah,
That's what
it's
I
not
assume.
a throwaway.
Yeah, that's
Like, is she gonna have a brother come up soon?
That's my question too. That's the big question that I have because that stood out to me a lot, and I'm like, okay, we haven't gotten basically any memories that she has from
she
being a
remembers her
kid.
mother, right? Doesn't she remember her mom?
I think that all
Or,
the
like, the
memories,
feeling of her.
yes,
Yeah.
they're all kind of vague, like abstract memories.
I
She doesn't
remember
have
holding me type of thing.
Yes, like she doesn't remember. She talks about remembering, like, I remember being afraid and I remember being corralled with all the kids and then I remember being in Aurea.
Yeah.
And that's it. And yeah, that stood out to me a lot. And I'm like, okay, so is this a question that we're going to have for like this entire book and have to wait for the next one?
Well, and that's the
gonna
thing
get
too.
an answer.
is
Yeah.
We don't know if her parents are alive or not. Really, we assume they're dead.
Yeah, she definitely assumes that they're dead, but
Right.
maybe now that she's back, maybe she'll find. That would be nice.
Yeah, it would.
That would be nice.
But I'm like, to your point about the ribbons, though, speaking of family, is it going to be her family or Slade or like what reactivates those? Is it going to
Right.
be like terror or vengeance or there's got to be something that
Right.
clicks on, I
Yeah.
feel like, to make them work again.
Yeah. Because it almost feels kind of cruel to me for her to have
Yeah.
them, but then not be able to use them, right? Because it wasn't just that they existed. It was the way that, like you were talking about earlier, the way that she used them, and to not be
They
able
were
to
her
do
safety.
that. Yeah, to not be able to do that is, you might as well not be there.
But
you know
also,
what I mean?
one thing that they keep having this bird symbolism, right? Like their symbol
Yeah.
for her is the
That's
bird,
true.
and when she fell, they thought they were her wings.
Yeah. Yeah, and the symbol is like a broken wing. Yeah.
Well,
So
and he calls
maybe-
her Goldfinch, which I just
Right.
love that
But
connection.
maybe them being broken is going to be part of her story.
Yeah,
That's
Right.
true.
I'm sure
That's
it will
true.
be. Yeah. But now I'm thinking about Sarah Turley too, because I hadn't thought about until we've been talking about it. Because when you were talking about maybe she's still alive or whatever, I haven't thought about the fact that we get 1 or 2 chapters in Sarah Turley's POV.
Right.
So that is a good question. Like, okay, so if she's still alive, like, what's up with that? And if she's not alive, what is this supposed to be? Like a journal, or you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Or
where did that POV come
is-
from?
Is Auren's Sarah
Like
There's
a
nothing-
reincarnation.
or is she her and doesn't remember?
Ooh.
Oh, I don't like that theory though, because then that would mean, like, who's the guy that she was married to all the time ago?
It doesn't mean it was a marriage of love or that he's even alive.
Well, that's true,
Or
but
maybe
like,
it was Slade.
But
You're like, no, stop it. But it could be a reincarnated type of thing too.
maybe.
Yeah. She's like, maybe, and she's looking at me like I'm a dumbass.
I guess we'll find
I'm
out.
getting season 1 vibes going on here.
Were there any other questions? I don't have any other.
I think
No.
we have plenty.
I know
Yeah.
we've had a lot. What about what you guys are looking forward to?
Oh, I really need Auren and Slade to reunite.
That was mine too.
That's what I wrote. Everyone being reunited, and then I also wrote down all Slade moments.
Well, and I've said this several times this episode. I really just want to see how Queen Melina comes into her powers.
yeah.
Yeah,
True.
I would like to. I am excited about seeing more of her and more of the assassin too, because I did have the same questions.
Well,
like,
and
what's
I'll
up with this guy?
I'll be honest. In book 4, when they kept having her POV chapters, I was like, "Ugh, get
Me
back to
too.
the good stuff."
Yeah.
And it's
Me
almost
too.
like, is it Crown of Midnight where they bring Manon into Throne of Glass? And I can't tell you on like fan pages how often I have to be like, people are like, "Who's this Manon person? Like, why do we have to keep reading about her?" And that's how I felt about Queen
Yeah.
Melina last book. So
Yeah, me
something
too.
has changed for me that makes me
Yeah.
really excited about her.
Yeah, well, Raven Kennedy is just really good at pulling out characters, right? And like giving you just a little bit at a time when you all of a sudden realize, like, oh, I don't hate this person anymore.
Right.
Like, how did that even happen? You know, she's really good at
I
that.
still hate Midas. Fuck
Okay,
him.
going back to your reincarnation Sarah Auren thing, I do want to point out when Sarah falls out, her dress is ripped and it looks like torn shreds of
Yes.
ribbons. And then, Auren has those ribbons and then they come back when she. So, I mean,
There's a lot of
something
parallels
there.
there.
There's
Yeah.
something
Well,
there
and
for sure.
Annette says that she falls in the same field that Sarah supposedly fell in.
Yes.
Whether
Right.
that's accurate or not,
Yeah.
who knows? But that is where the glowy flower
Flowers are,
things,
yeah.
like
I
whatever
feel like
that's
we have
about.
a lot of unreliable narrators right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, I don't believe anything that anyone's saying.
Right. Well, and even Auren,
Yeah.
because she doesn't remember stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Sorry, every time you say Auren,
Auren. It's like a pirate. Auren. Yeah. Even she is an unreliable narrator because she doesn't remember. Like, she only has what everybody else is telling her. And then who
Yeah.
are these people?
Yeah.
So, well, I think that's it for this section.
Yeah.
I think it's time for our nerdiest things of the week.
that's what our show's called. That's fun.
Look how clever.
Do-do-do-do-do.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go. I've got 2.
Me too.
I only have one.
It's about damn time. So I just finished up a really special embroidery project for author Hilary Raymer. She wrote the Fave saga. If you're not familiar with her, they're really, really great books. We've also interviewed her on the podcast in the past. She has a group of people. I think they're like kind of bigger than her street team. They're like her main people, right? And so I embroidered all of like the key phrases and names on the back of sweatshirts for them, and then like a little crown on the front with like the
that's
city name.
cute.
And then I also surprised her with like some little holographic stickers of like that city name and some library card bookmarks for her books. And so I was really, really
cool.
excited about that, and just really thanked her for asking me to do something so special for her.
That's awesome.
And then I also, if you listened last time, I got super obsessed with Manacled and still have not. I mean, I'm like kind of in a book slump right now, to be honest, because nothing has compared to that for me so far.
I still haven't read it.
Yeah, I was worried you were looking at me because you didn't like it so far.
No, I haven't even started it.
You've had a lot on your plate. So I ordered artwork from the original Manacled artist of one of the scenes, and it came in this week, and it's so fucking beautiful.
Oh, nice.
And I like this book, you guys. I like cannot. It literally might be the best book I've ever read in my entire life.
That's awesome.
It's so good. So yeah, it's beautiful. I'll show it to you after you read it because I don't want to ruin it.
Well, and it's not traditionally published either. Like
It's not.
I
It's
see
fanfic.
all kinds of people talking about how amazing it is, and I'm like, how has this not gotten picked up?
Someone said, could you not just change the names in like the city and all that? But what makes that book so powerful is she did not have to do world building. The world's already there. It's the Harry
that's
Potter
true.
world.
And
Yeah.
you already love those characters.
Right.
Like you already.
Someone
Yeah.
asked in a group if they could read Manacled without having read Harry Potter, and I said absolutely not. Because part of the emotional investment in the book is what happens to all the characters.
That whole series.
Otherwise,
yeah.
you'd just be like, nah. And you don't know how awful Draco was to Hermione at
Right.
Hogwarts,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it would still probably be a compelling story that you would think was kind of cool. It'd probably be
Yeah.
a 3 or 4 star read for you. But knowing the historical significance of that world and
Right.
Voldemort and all the shit he's done and the unicorn blood, and it just, you know, you've got these people that have been a part of the Harry Potter universe for 25 years that are now reading this fanfic about 2 people that have been shipped for 25 years. And so I think you have to have that background to enjoy it. She's not ever going to be able to traditionally publish it unless J.K. Rowling says yes, which she's
Like,
not
gives her
going to do.
permission, yeah.
And people, unfortunately, J.K. Rowling has kind of canceled herself. So
Yeah.
True.
maybe she should learn to not talk. And not to hate trans people.
Quiet, you.
Hey, no, actually, I want to take that back. She doesn't need to learn to not talk. She needs to not be an asshole.
Right.
I want to rephrase that. Yeah, because, I mean, she would still be an asshole even if she didn't talk.
Right, yeah. We just wouldn't have to hear it.
Right.
Which would be a step in the right direction. Mindy, what was your nerdiest thing?
Well, I mean, it's no secret that lately I've been channeling my granny vibes with cross stitch. And so when I found
But you're not cross-stitching like Live, Laugh,
No,
Love
I'm not.
Pillows.
I'm not. I'm cross-stitching super
Right.
cool
You
stuff, right?
cross-stitched the Jacksonville Rays characters for Emily Rath. I
I
want to
know.
say that out loud.
Which already I'm thinking, like, I can't wait to cross-stitch some other ones. I just finished Whiskey and Sin by her, by the way, her Omegaverse, and it's amazing.
I've been wanting to read it so
it's
bad.
really, really
Because it's
good.
got like Bridgerton vibes, doesn't it? But it's a Why Choose type of...
But it's contemporary.
Right.
Oh, you're thinking about Alcott Hall. You're thinking about
That's
her
the
other
Regency
ones.
series.
The Regency series.
I
No,
didn't know
Whiskey and
those-
Sin is a complete standalone. It's an Omegaverse. So it's like
Can you explain what an Omegaverse is? Because when I didn't know until I read your review.
Omegaverse is a sub-genre of speculative erotic fiction and originally a subgenre of erotic/fan fiction. Its premise is that a dominance hierarchy exists in humans divided into dominant alphas, neutral betas, and submissive omegas.
That doesn't tell me shit.
I know, but that's what it says.
I mean, in a nutshell, yes.
That's basically what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
That's sort of like the skeleton framework. And then I guess authors
you take
flesh
that
it
and
out. Yeah.
make it your own
Yes.
or whatever.
So that was a
All right.
huge digression, but seriously,
Sorry.
go pick it up. It's wonderful.
I'm really excited
Back
about
to
that.
my cross stitching.
Wait, you cross-stitched?
I found a pattern, and I will have to link this in the show notes because I cannot for the life of me remember the shop. And it was just a little download of a pattern, and it's for a bookmark, and it's a book tracker. So it looks like a bookshelf, and then you cross stitch the outlines of all the books, and they look like, you know, some of them are on their side, some of them are upright, and they're all different sizes. And then there's a code. I made my own code for like what genres that I like.
Yeah.
And you fill in each book for, you know, however many romanticy books you read, how many mysteries or
nice.
thrillers. So it'll be all nice and colorful,
Oh, that's cool.
but as you go.
I love
That's
that.
cool. So
Yeah.
you embroider as you go.
Yes. So
Okay.
the framework's there. I'm done with all of it, but like filling in the books, that's as I read.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because I was
Oh,
going to
that's
ask
cool.
how you put the books on later, but you haven't done
Yeah,
the
it's
books
like,
yet.
right.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Nice. Well,
What about you, Whit?
I have two. One is that I finally have bookcases. I haven't had a bookcase since I moved out of my parents'
You
house.
know what I thought as soon as you sent us pictures of those is I was like, now I get to make her all kinds of fandom shit that Robbie is going to hate.
Oh my gosh, he was trying to like put stuff on the bookcases.
You're like, no.
Yeah, and I was like, no, this is
Get your own damn
this is
bookcases.
my stuff. Like, we're not doing that.
Where are they?
So
In
they're
the
in my
house?
room, in the bedroom. Yeah, so I've got all my books and like special edition, which all my books. I still have like 2 empty shelves at the bottom of each bookcase. I'm
But
excited
now
about
you can
that.
buy more books, and when
Yes.
you run out of room, you
That's
can buy
what
more
I said.
bookcases.
Yeah, that's what I said. And Robbie was like, I don't know about that.
You have all that wall space left. You
there's-
shoun't have empty
there's a
walls.
lot. There's a lot, especially in the living room. It's a
Right.
lot of space. The other nerdy thing is my mom brought this box of like really old books. Well, not all of them are
I thought
really
you were
old.
going to say your glamour shot.
No, no, if only. No, she brought this like box of books, and some of the books are really, really old, and some of them are just like from my childhood. So I went through and was looking for anything I wanted to keep, and I only kept 3 books. One was Babysitter's Club, one was Sweet Valley Twins, and then one is this really insane book. It's like, I can't remember what it's called. It's like Diddy, Dumps, and Tot. I think that is what it's called. It's like The Adventures of Diddy, Dumps, and Tot, which
That just sounds like a weird erotic.
well, it's
thing.
definitely not, but it's like I kept it because I'm like, this was my grandmother's, so it has like sentimental value, but it is also like really embarrassing. First of all, because it's called Diddy Dumps and Tot, but also because it's from like pre-Civil War. It's like 130 years old or something. Like it's really, the book itself is very, very old, and the story is even older, and it is basically like these Diddy, Dumps, and Tot are 3 sisters that live on a plantation. And that is what the book is about. And it was written before the Civil War. So if you just like use your imagination, and my family that my grandmother descends from, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they were white tobacco farmers in Tennessee. So any stereotype that you think there, like, yes. So I flipped through it and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so crazy. But it was written, before the Civil War, so it's not abnormal for that time period, unfortunately. But it was kind of a cool, like, well, look at how far we've come, kind of.
Kind of.
I have a book from my childhood that actually Darren's mom found that I remembered from my childhood, and I actually kept, and it's called Luck and Pluck.
Oh.
So that sounds a little bit, but they had weird names for things back then.
Yeah.
But it's like it almost is like a textbook, like it's little short story, like an early reader book.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine being a little girl and having your nickname be Dumps? I can't get past that. That's so crazy.
Please don't call your friends that.
Yeah, like
That's not
my
nice.
sister. Here's my sister Diddy and my sister Todd, but everybody calls me Dumps. It's so insane, but that's like the most fun part of the insaneness of this book.
The rest of it's a little bit
The rest
sad.
of it is just like, oh.
Did you all have nicknames from friends growing up?
No, my family calls still me Woo.
Woo. Oh, that's really cute.
My nephews call me Aunt Woo.
Oh, I love that. What
My-
about you, Min?
My oldest friend and I that I've known since 4th grade, we called each other, we shorten names all the time. So we went from Mindalyn and Missily, her name's Melissa, to Melendel. Like there's a
Aw.
whole thing, but so we called each other Melendel.
Wait a
cute.
second. You've never mushed up our 3 names together.
I know, I need to do that. No, Melissa was much better at
You
it
know
than
what?
I was.
I really like Melissa, and that's the only thing holding me back right now.
It would be like Mindebny.
I like it.
Oh, I like it.
It sounds like a supernatural monster of the week.
Mindebny.
I think
What
this
do
is a
we eat?
Mindebny.
Dick.
I'll work on that.
On eating dick?
Let's workshop
No,
that.
on our nicknames.
Darren's like, yes.
On that note, thanks for joining us, people.
So next week, we're going to be talking about gold, part 2 of our discussion, chapters 17 through 26.
Bye, everybody. Like what you heard in this episode? Follow Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram at instagram.com/Our Nerdiest Thing or Facebook at facebook.com/Our Nerdiest Thing. We love hearing from fellow nerds. Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com.